Hello, and we're back. Today on Female Voices Life and Loss, we're honored to welcome a powerful voice in the world of mental health, advocacy, and grief support, Derek Howell. This is his second time blessing us.
Welcome back.
For agreeing to do this. So, today we are talking about how to support fathers on Bereaved Father's Day. And so I have a list of questions. But before I go with my list of questions, Derek, you want to tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about your background, a little bit about your journey?
Absolutely. So, Derek Howell, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a father, I'm a husband, athlete. I currently work with athletes. I have been able to and been blessed to not only study social work in undergrad, but also grad school. So really passionate about this, but also in recent years been learning a little bit more about like the business side of things. So also hold an MBA and really just want to continue to like merge the gap of resources and the individuals who need them, and also just changing how we have conversations as a whole in this society. So, yeah.
Well, before we get into this episode, because we thought about it in the other episode, you say you're an athlete. Like, bear with me. All sports? Certain one? Tell me, what kind of an athlete are you?
Most of us, when we say athlete, like we can do a little bit of everything. But
yeah.
I played football growing up from like elementary school through college. Also always loved and had a passion for playing basketball as well. So I still, now when I get free time, now it's like one of my favorite hobbies, just shoot around, play basketball. It definitely is one of those things where, you never get out of it. So continue to do that. Also, I cycle, so I have a bike, so I like riding my bike and going on runs. So I knocked out a 5K a couple years back. So yeah, anything that I can do to move my body, I still enjoy doing.
That's awesome. So are you tall? You said basketball.
No.
Okay, just quick.
But I'm fast. So that's how I make up for it. Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you're not tall in basketball, you have to be quick.
Yep.
Yeah, I know you're in the St. Louis area because we talked a little bit about that. Were you born and raised in the St. Louis area? Or did you come here for school or athlete?
I grew up in New Jersey, so North New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Yep. But I've moved around.
I don't hear that accent.
A lot of people say they hear it. A lot of people don't. I think it depends on where that person is from, honestly, because I kind of still hear both. But grew up in New Jersey. I've moved around a lot for work and school. So I've lived like up and down the East Coast, Washington, D.C., North Carolina, Missouri, Minnesota, a little bit of everywhere. So I just moved around professionally.
Nice.
I tease him because he sounds just like my friend Hassan, and Hassan is from New Jersey, and they both sound exactly alike.
Well, I don't.
Hassan has been in the Army though, and we lived in Florida, so that's where I met him. And I was like, "Oh my God, you sound just like my best friend Hassan."
Yeah. I think it depends.
I feel like I'm talking to Hassan,
Yeah, I don't hear it, but
I hear it. I'm like, "Ooh, that's New Jersey." My best friend Kathy, she's from Delaware, so I hear that East Coast, all the
Yeah, for sure.
They're my people.
Yeah.
All right. So you told us a little bit about how you grew up, and he's going to start. I don't know how much more traveling. Do you want to share with the audience your new journey that's going to be starting soon?
So I'm a officer in the United States Air Force. So I'll be starting.
You're going to be so blessed.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So, Derek, with your experience in counseling and social work, what are some unique challenges that bereaved fathers face that often go unrecognized?
So I think one challenge, one thing to note is that this population is unique, right? So talking about already diving into mental health, well-being, but then also just talking about grieving a loss of a family member, a loved one. And how do I ask for support when already if we weren't talking about and adding into it loss, like it already can be so many barriers that are there and in place. But yeah, the aspect of being a male and a man who's talking about areas of vulnerability and also talking about something that they may not have control over, right? If it's a health related loss that, we can't change, or if it's something that they feel like they could have changed, that can cause a level of guilt, shame that, really changes someone's like worldview, especially if their identity is wrapped in being able to provide, protect, and show up for those individuals in their lives in that way. So yeah, those are some of those challenges that they may face.
Yeah, you definitely spoke to I know some that my husband I'm sure has faced cuz and I don't share this with a lot of people. My husband he was actually negligent. So when our son passed, so that was just a huge area, grief, sadness, like you just said, I'm supposed to be the protector. I'm supposed to, show up. And so it often feels, probably, I'm sure for a lot of men, that their grief is seen as kind of invisible, right? Because when you think about babies or you think about littles, you think about mom's going to be so impacted. Mom, she's the primary caregiver, so I'm sure that men a lot of times feel kind of overlooked, or their grief is kind of minimized.
Because I think people, especially when it's a child, it's always, people will ask, how's, with men, they'll ask, how's their wife doing?
Yeah.
And many times I've heard men say, well, I lost a child also. But we as a society have a tendency to think of the woman because of probably what you just said, Louina. They're many times the main caregiver, so that attention goes there. And men are supposed to be strong. They're not supposed to have all those feelings and all of that stuff. So we have, as a society, have a tendency to go there. And many times I think we just forget, and we're not aware that man is really struggling. Maybe we just don't address it so that those emotions don't come up and they feel embarrassed or whatever. I don't know. What do you think, Derek? You're the expert here. You're the male, the three of us. What do you think?
No, listen, I'm taking in what y'all saying. I'm taking in what y'all saying. I think y'all are making some valid points and some additions as well. My mind kind of just went to the point, Teresa, when you made that statement. It's like the two words were care and like credibility, right? Like we oftentimes, like you said, as a larger society, we think to care for the woman, especially when we're talking about like a loss and grieving. And then it's like credibility is for the man. It's like, what are you doing? What have you done? How do you show up? And I think that being kind of like that separating into like the response being, okay, like, when are you going back to work? Is life kind of going to look the same for you, right? Because I think oftentimes like that is how men can get over like the initial shock of, I just lost something. It's like I get back to do what I'm doing, right? So that's where that credibility comes in. But then like the care is like, what do you need? What do you need now? And that's the question and the response that is oftentimes verbalized and asked to the woman. Is like, hey, what do you need? How can I show up for you in this way? I don't think that oftentimes the men get that same care as well of like, hey, how do you feel about this right now? Because I know that you're having to be going through some emotional battles right now as well. So yeah, no, I think just wanted to add that too.
Yeah, those society expectations definitely could lead them to kind of suppress their grief, feeling ashamed for expressing emotions, sadness, things like that, being vulnerable. So that was a lot of conversations around that in my house because, I'm the one who's upset. I'm the one who's crying. I'm the one who's sad. And then he's kind of stoic. And so I was like, hey, you got to show our kids that it's okay to grieve, because, if they see you not showing any emotions and I'm all over the place or whatever, they're going to be like, what's wrong with me if I want to, be sad or show emotion and things like that. Those have been a lot of a lot of conversations that we have had. So I'm aware that those things, probably have happened, in my own house. But my husband has some friends at work who's lost their child too. So that ends up being his kind of support group, for lack of a better word. He's showing those emotions to those people, but we don't ever see it, back into your routine of working, da da da. And I'm like, are you grieving our child? What's happening here?
Yeah.
But Derek, is that the best for men? Because we're talking about really how do we support those bereaved fathers?
Mm-hmm.
How can we change that as a society? Or is that the best for the man to just get right back into work? Is there something that we can do? Can you speak to that? How should we do that different, or is that the best way for them?
I mean, is that the best way? No, right? But is it?
Sure, because you said that's how we do. That's how men do it.
Right. So,
and
but is it
can we
commonplace?
change that?
Yes.
Yeah.
But is it commonplace? Yes. Right. And so now let's also look at the other side of this all, right? So we're talking about loss and grief, right? Let's also talking about welcoming. We'll use the same example of a child, right? It's the same thing of mom gets maternity leave, dad goes back to work after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? And so I think it's just commonplace for it to be a different processing in what a father needs to create and have a bond with their child, as opposed to a mom and a woman having that same bond, right? It's equal. We know that it's important for both parents to have that same bond in birth. So why would we assume that it would be any different, in the mourning process? I think that, rushing back to work isn't the answer. But I mean, I think, Luana, you brought up the example, like the personal example is that it just may feel easy to go back out, right? Like, hey, now I'm not in the home. I'm not in the place that a lot of this grief is real and it's fresh, right? It's heavy, exactly. But I can go out. I can maybe find lighter things to address, and also I can maybe find some wins here too. Like maybe they know how to do their job well, and so that way it gives them a sense of like that purpose and fulfillment. Not to say that they don't want to talk and share these feelings, but it just might be an easier way to begin that process. I don't know. I think maybe that's one of the things. Like, what can we do to change it? Maybe it's increasing the time that we have on both ends from a bereavement standpoint. Like, most employers don't generally give that much time, right? Or so you have to make the decision: do I go back to work? Do I take off? And in some families, I'm not going to generalize and say most or all, but in some families, there is someone who stays home with maybe having a caregiver primary role and someone who goes to work. So depending on how that looks, that person may say, after these 2 days off, I have to go back to work, right, for the livelihood of my family or my household. But maybe again on the front end, we have and normalize fathers being home for longer, because I think that naturally translate to grief looking differently, right? If I'm here more and if I'm understanding how deep and important that bond is on the beginning of life, right? Like, I think it just bodes well for the communication and grieving process, just naturally for men.
I don't know. Sometimes it might, just getting back, back to business as usual. It might, kind of delay that grief.
Push it down, bury it.
Kind of stuff it. It's a little bit like, I know at least, and thankfully my husband was in a unique position, to where we both were off for a month, and then I had to go back to work because my team needed me. But and I think he was off for 2 months, and then his job, I think something happened with the car industry, so he was like, "Oh, I better go back to work because something's happening or whatever."
Yeah.
But he, thankfully he was in a unique position where they were just like, we're going to pay you. Don't worry about it. Because he's only commission only too. So they were just like, we're going to pay you. Don't worry about it. And he was able to go back. But that was, pretty hard, a hard time, I guess I should say.
And I think there are larger companies many times that give the dads just as much time as the woman. That it's really those smaller companies and stuff that I think are okay, 2-3 days, and now you need to get back. And I would love to see that change so that we can really be aware of the grief and the mental health and everything that's tied together with that to better care for the men that have experienced significant loss. I think as a whole, our society would be in a much better place if we allowed men the space to grieve, I'll say, in a healthy and more productive way instead of stuffing it, pushing it down, all those words that we just said. Society as a whole would be much, much better off. So hopefully those little companies are listening to us.
Afford it. It'd be great, but we can afford it. I get them.
Yeah, worked into the benefit plan.
Yeah, and the benefits suck a little bit too, and I think me and Derek both attest to some of that. Let's see. How can families and communities better acknowledge and honor bereaved Father's Day, especially in ways that don't force a father to perform or suppress emotions?
I think it's allowing them to just be themselves, right? It's not having so many things planned that they feel like they have to just keep a smile on or entertain people. But, I think part of it is asking, it could ruin a surprise for sure, right? If you're trying to put on something, but sometimes like that is the most respectful thing to do, is just to ask, like, hey, I want to do something, and then also just understanding like motives, right? Like, I want to do something for you is different from I want to do something and I'm putting on this event, right? Versus like, hey, I want to do something for you. What do you think? Like, would you enjoy something like this? I think two very different outcomes can come from that. So I think just asking, being willing to allow fathers the space to just be themselves. Like, maybe like entertaining and socializing isn't something that they naturally do, and doing it around this time might not be the most helpful thing. But again, in that same tone, maybe they are people who are very social, and this is not the most appropriate thing or something that they feel like will be the most helpful thing for them to do at that time. So I think it's just paying attention and being attuned to, how that father is feeling. So just asking the question and being curious.
Then you ask my husband, he's like, I don't know. Help me help you, sir.
Yeah, and being okay if nothing planned happens, right? And it's more organic.
I'm okay, but then what usually happens is the kids would be like, "Oh, Dad, we should do X, Y, Z," and he'd be like, "Okay, I guess I'm doing X, Y, Z."
Yeah, that works. They figure it out for you. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I want an effort. I get a point.
True. You get a point.
I get a point. Okay. Can you share any tools or coping strategies you recommend for fathers grieving the loss of a child, especially for those who may be hesitant to seek therapy? What are some ways that they can cope?
Yeah, so I'll preface this answer by saying, I don't think there's a substitute for working with a professional. I think there are things that you can do that can be helpful on either side, whether you don't feel like you're ready or are unwilling to seek out that, additional support from a professional. So a few things that I would say could be helpful would be journaling. I always tell men, especially, like, you don't have to think of it as like a diary or you're writing like love letters to someone in it. It's like you just write in a notebook. Like, you can just call it that if you need to and want to. If it makes you feel better about yourself, let's do that. But I think just writing out those ideas, being able to process things outside of your head, outside of the head of a man, sometimes can be super helpful, because then we can see those ideas on paper, and then we can conceptualize and make those ideas become reality and concrete. So I think that's like very helpful for men to kind of see like that process, work through their emotions. Also, art therapy, just art in general, right? Like, you don't have to make it this thing of we're going in a direction of anything, right? It can just be art, simply drawing, doodling. I think that might be something that is helpful because it's free. It allows you to not have a particular goal in mind. At the end of that moment, you created something as well. So I think that's something else that generally is helpful for men to have, maybe a goal in mind with their art, but also just not having a goal in mind and to look up a couple minutes later and say, okay, well, I created something pretty nice and maybe I want to add in some colors and some details. And that's when like just that healing and that processing truly can begin. Another thing that I use oftentimes with the men that I work with is recording. So again, if we're too much in the mindset of I'm not journaling, I'm not writing a diary, I simply say, like, you can always record yourself. So some people have issues with hearing their voice, particularly. So if you don't want to do like a voice memo or voice audio, our phones have that already as a feature. So if you can always use that voice recorder, but if you don't want to do that, or if just hearing your voice solely is a deterrent, you can always record a video. So like a video blog or a vlog, an entry, and using that as a substitute to journaling, I think is another thing that I've seen helpful for the men that I work with.
Yeah, I always tell everybody, do talk to text. Some of us are just not going to sit there and write it all out. Maybe we could just yell it out.
I love that. And when you said about art, I thought about like women, and you sort of talked about doodling, like the adult coloring books. I thought, well, women do that. So yeah, what do men do? And my thought went not necessarily about grief, but just in general, men. My son-in-law carves wood. And I thought, oh, that might be a cool thing for a man to do, just for art. But yeah, women do a lot of things, but I just tell people, like, journaling doesn't have to be what we classify journaling is. Sometimes it's just writing some words down. No sentence, just words. And a lot of times the voice recording is beneficial for sure if they're not. I'm not a journaler, like write, but I know how beneficial it is. So I'll write sentences, but not paragraphs.
This is probably different. Like I have a journal for my baby, and I do kind of like, I just put memes on there. So I go down Facebook and all the ones that I lost my son and I'm so sad and I'm looking up at heaven, I just copy it when I'm thinking about him. So then I'm like, okay, next year when this day rolls around, I'll have something to look at,
Nice.
So just things that I find online, I save it to him. Because if I talk to him too much, then I'll be, you're just cry. And I'm like, no, I can't do that all day. So
I love that, Dave, that a lot of the things that you said are very similar or the same as what I recommend for women, to do the same. So that was a huge eye-opener to me, that it's really, those coping kind of things are the same. So good for me to know.
This is maybe not in our wheelhouse, but I'll throw it out there anyway. How might a peer support group or community groups impact grieving dads differently than individual therapy? Are there any models you've seen work particularly well? So this may be like left way out there, but if you have any ideas.
Yeah, I can speak to it some. I would say that models, I've seen the recovery model used. So, from NAAA, how that community group model has been effective in bringing together individuals who, again, like when we're talking about grief and loss, like it may not always be a particular person, like death, but it also could just be a loss of a relationship, right? Like, so, especially from the world of substance use and abuse, like sometimes people have severed relationships. And so like that is a loss, and that does come with mourning as well of relationships. So, I've seen that model successfully ran in that sphere of things. But I think that some of the differences in the changes for men dealing with grief and who are grieving from an individual and group setting, I think one just allows you that space and time to just like maybe dump whatever it is that you have on your heart, your chest, your mind in a very different way initially too, because I think that oftentimes that just allowing everything to pour out forms and happens later on in a group setting because we have to get more familiar with everyone, or if the group is an open or closed group, like some of those things really do matter. But also like if someone makes a very left hand or out of left field comment, like, and I was going to share something, now I'll maybe pull back, right? Versus like an individual is just one person and we can work through these things in a very different way. So I would say like that's some of the differences there. Yeah.
I really appreciate you speaking to the differences in both, because my husband is an AA, been doing it for 11 years. And so he has a very different idea about what therapy looks like, because he's like, I have my AA group, they're my support people, they're my people, and trying to explain to him what the difference looks like in being in a mental health office and the way we would support them differently. And we would probably come to, like you said, more conclusions quicker in that one-on-one setting versus the group, because like you said, it may take a minute for them to want to share or be that to that level of vulnerability. And a therapist can pull out some of that and be like, this and this matters, and this is kind of the pattern that I'm seeing, that has happened in your life up until this point. So I think it's very powerful. Both can be very powerful and work to me hand in hand, is where I would like my husband to be. But of course, I got to meet him where he is. Darn it. So,
come on. There you go.
Got to wait on him to get to that realization. And it's kind of hard.
It comes with its own unique challenges, right? But I think that being the beautiful thing that everyone has capacity to change, right? Like everyone. So I think that's the beauty in that.
That would be like a great place to stop. Teresa, do you have anything you want to share?
I was just going to say, I think they do, just like you said, they go hand in hand. There's many times that I work with someone individually, and I will encourage them to also find a group, because there's just a lot of benefit with finding those other people that can better understand and they can hear from them, so they don't feel so alone in experiencing their loss. And vice versa. If there are people that I come across that are in a group, that it moves just quicker, I'll say. You can move through and get to the root of some of those things when it's one-on-one. Just is a faster process in getting to the root of some of those things. So I think they do definitely go hand in hand. So yeah, I would just reiterate that. One is not better maybe than the other, but it's important to do both, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
As a final question, what are some do's and don'ts when it comes to supporting our partner, our loved one who is a bereaved father? So what are some do's and don'ts that we can keep in mind when supporting?
I would say a do would definitely be active listening, listening to hear and understand, and not to respond or to coerce or to sway a conversation in a certain way.
I saw a little reaction there. That hit somebody here.
Yes.
Good advice.
So I would say that's one do and don't, right? So kind of like we were speaking on earlier, like meeting that father where they're at, asking the questions and being okay with the response. So like whether that's 2 words, a head nod, again, with time and progression, right? Because again, we don't want to stay there, but it may be where they're at in the moment. And so if we can accept that, then that can definitely help with communication down the road. And then I would say another do would be to stay curious and to figure out like not only what's changing in their behaviors, but like also what are some of the things that they may have enjoyed doing that you could support or encourage them to do again. So, we go back to thinking about those hobbies and different things, like whether that be writing, whether that be playing an instrument, maybe encouraging some of those hobbies to happen. And if, possible, maybe even engaging in those hobbies with them, right? It kind of speaks to the level of support of like, hey, I may not enjoy doing this, but I'm in it with you, right? Like literally in this activity, but like also in it, meaning I'm in the work that has to be done. Like it's an individual work, but I'm here to support you in whatever it is that you may need along the way. So yeah, I think those kind of like hit home for me, like those few things.
What about do not? Things to not do? Because I think we as a society do more of them. So I just wanted you to kind of bring up some of those things that you might be doing this, but this is one that you should not be doing. Yeah,
so kind of to add on to the first one, which was like to not coerce, to not, have like responses already tabbed. I would say just to not assume as well, which goes into staying curious and asking questions, but to not assume how someone is feeling based on body language, demeanor. I think oftentimes we can get lost in that whole dance of, okay, well, your arms are crossed or this is happening. Sometimes we might just be misreading things. Like somebody could be cold and might have rubbed their arms or something else is going on. So I think not looking too deep into the weeds in assumption, but asking that direct question. So yeah, don't make the assumption. I would kind of label that one. And then I'll give you one more to not do. I want to pick one out for you. I would say another not would be to, I guess I would say minimize. Yeah, that would be the last one I would say. Is to minimize feelings or to just not take what is being said at face value, or kind of like opening a conversation up and then it's like, all right, well, I'm checked out, on to the next thing already. So kind of like minimizing what is being said or what is not being said. I think that could really change, communication and just like how that father is feeling about talking in the future.
Awesome. Thank you.
You hit almost everything on my little list I got here of do's and don'ts.
Nice.
He's an expert.
Yes, he is. So thank you so much for taking time to share with us some tips of how we can support bereaved fathers, because Teresa and I are in the business of supporting men and women as they walk through this grief, loss, and life journey. So thank you so much, Derek Howell, the amazing social worker who's going to go be amazing with the Air Force. And we're so sad a little bit. But we're going to wish him well.
Thank you.
We definitely are going to wish you well. That was very informative, and I'm sure the listeners are going to grab lots and lots of nuggets from all of that information. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you both for having me today, and to your listeners.